Okay, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to colleagues, depending on where you are. Welcome to this breakout session. I hope you can hear me. I'm seeing already a good number of colleagues and some familiar names around our virtual table. Very happy to be in touch with you through this breakout session. We have little time, so I'll move forward while probably some more are joining us and they will catch up as we go along. Let me introduce myself. My name is Henning Wuester. I'm the director of the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency, ICAT. And just for those of you who don't know ICAT, 3 words about ICAT. We are one of the support providers that are helping countries to build capacity for enhanced transparency. ICAT supports the full spectrum of what is needed under the enhanced transparency framework. Our focus is very much on policy MRV. We've just launched the final version of 10 guides that countries can use to support work in that regard. Know more about ICAT. If you are interested in details, please visit our website, climatetransparency.org, for any details. Or contact me bilaterally, and I'm happy to give you any further details. So again, welcome to this breakout session. I'm supposed to first of all give you a few housekeeping instructions, and that I'll do quite quickly. All interventions in this breakout sessions have to be oral through the microphone. So if you're not speaking, please keep your microphone muted. When you want to request the floor, then please use the hand raising function in the system. And if your system doesn't have that function, then you can also use the chat section to signal to us that you would like to intervene by typing intervention. After you have received the floor, you can unmute yourself and then intervene. When I give you the floor, please try to be brief. Keep your interventions to ideally under a minute so that we can really have a lot of interaction and all participants can share their thoughts. The chat function should not be used other than to requests for an intervention. It's really only a tool to organize the session. There is an opportunity to provide comments through the Mentimeter link that you already might have seen during the plenary. So there you can type a code which appears here on the screen, and we'll put it also into the chat, and you can submit comments. Please note that these comments are not part of the breakout group discussions. They will be used subsequently for the report, but I cannot see them and we cannot present them here. So any comments that you want to bring into the breakout group, please do that orally and use the intervention request that I outlined. So with that, let me move into the subject matter and point to the questions that we have received as guidance. There are 3 questions, and I'll just sort of paraphrase them or summarize them. The first question really addresses lessons learned and experience from existing processes, in particular the ICA. And the second question then zooms into whether capacity building support actually addresses real needs, and then to understand how meeting those real needs can be assured through adequate capacity building. The third question then covers institutional arrangements and processes and good examples of capacity building support. So that's also a very important question. And in order to make sure that we also get to that third question, I will switch to that short third question after 20 minutes, so that we really do not miss out on that one. So unless there are any burning questions to the way we proceed, or any comments that are of a general nature, I would like to start off by the first question. I don't see any requests for the floor right now, so let me then move to the first question. So that focuses on lessons learned from the existing process of the ICA, and how can the capacity building needs identified through this process strengthen capacity building for MRV. We already heard during the plenary, in particular from Juliette, that the ICA really is a useful process in identifying capacity building needs. Now the question is, have those needs then actually been picked up? Has there been follow-up action? Has this made a difference? So I invite colleagues to take the floor. Who can suggest any lessons learned? Anybody who wants to share a specific example, and it may be linked to the ICA, or if you wish, you could also go beyond and refer to other processes. So the floor is open if there's anybody who wants to intervene on this. I see Carlos asking for the floor. Carlos Fuller, please. Briefly introduce yourself when you take the floor.
Good morning, Henning, and good day to everyone. It's like 8 a.m. here in Belize now. My name is Carlos Fuller. I am at the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center located in Belize, but I'm also the lead negotiator for the Alliance of Small Island States in the climate change area. I'd just like to comment regarding question one. I've also participated in the expert reviews of biannual update reports. And as we see the second and the third BURs coming in from countries, we notice that their contents is much better with each time, as the capacity building has improved with each time. And I think we need to look at that as the way of providing the capacity building, encouraging parties to participate in the BUR process, get them to send it in. And as you know, when the expert asks questions during the analysis phase, it is always posed as a capacity building question. So it is not so much an interrogation, but as a way of providing support through that means. And we notice that with subsequent BURs, it becomes more difficult to ask the questions because they are getting better. So I think it is certainly something we need to encourage parties to do. Provide, submit your BURs, get through the process, and I think it is going to be a very seamless way then to transition to the BTR process. Thank you very much, Henning.
Thank you, Carlos. That was a very valuable point, and I think I can summarize it by saying learning by doing is clearly shown here, and BURs and reporting in general gets better the more often you do it, which really is an encouragement to countries to get started, not be too nervous about the first time, just seeing the opportunity to improve. I would add to that I think it's also important that you build then the human and perhaps institutional capacity in the country to be able to do this. And by doing it, you will also achieve that Are there any other points, any suggestions on this? Juliet, please.
Thank you. And it was just to respond with a quick reflection to what Carlos said, and thank you for that contribution. I find that really interesting to hear, and it reflects a lot of what we have heard when we've been speaking with a number of parties over the years. And I just really want to emphasize that point that, you know, the intention and the philosophy is that there will be you know, the reporting will improve over time. So it's just about getting started and the learning by doing. And hopefully the inbuilt system in itself will help parties to learn lessons. And then, of course, additional capacity support comes from elsewhere. But it's really that focus on reporting improving over time. So I just wanted to add that one little element. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. And I think it also nicely links up to the point that you made during your plenary intervention, that the review process is really facilitative. It's not punitive, and countries shouldn't be shy about it. So that learning by doing is really built into that process. I see Fabienne. Fabienne, requesting for the floor.
Yes, thank you, Henning. Hello, colleagues. Maybe also to briefly second what has already been said, this learning by doing element is, I think, so essential. You cannot learn things in theory when you really can just do it in practice, and that is just the best preparation we can have for the biannual transparency reports. But also, one thing that was also raised in the panel earlier is that the real importance of taking stock of what is already there on the national level and really building capacity development activities around that. And to that end, I think that the ICA process really leads to the best stock taking we kind of can get. You know, I think it's really a good starting point for any kind of capacity building activity. And so this is another reason why countries should start preparing their BURs, going through the process, learning through this facilitative process, and then having a good basis to request capacity building support, and also for capacity building providers to really know where to target their support at. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Fabian. I think that's also important. And I think it's a point that we may want to pick up when we talk about the linkage to from the current system to the ETF, that building on what is already established and then enhancing it further. I think that's really a recommendation. But it also picks up a point that I think Clifford made so well in his intervention, that you need to have the human capacity in the country. So building that human and institutional capacity in the country so that you can have that continuity for successive reporting cycles is absolutely critical, and has come out very successfully through the series of reports of the BORs for those countries that have submitted several of them. Very good. I think this is good coverage for the first question. I suggest we move on to the second question. What are key lessons learned in ensuring that the support received is targeted and responsive to the challenges and needs faced? For myself, and I'm sure my colleagues who are providing support, this is an extremely important question. We want to make sure that we respond to real needs, and we actually then are able to help countries to advance on meeting those challenges. So I'd be very keen to hear from countries, especially from countries that receive support, what they have seen as good examples and where they have seen examples that are perhaps not to be followed. So, I mean, messages of positive or negative examples are really welcome here. Any lessons learned, please let us know. I can share from ICAT experience that what we are doing is that we offer countries a menu of support activities, but we insist that they select
hello
is needed. Oh, there's somebody who wants
yes,
your name.
hello.
Please.
Yeah, I'm Sheila from Uganda speaking. I operate from the private sector. I have been supporting governments on transparent reporting, and from this, the second question, that have not really been having the capacity to coordinate the different donor supports to be able to address and target the response. So sometimes there's kind of overlap on some of the supports, and then because the framework is not well systematically implemented, so that coordinated positive change on the recipient might take a bit long because the framework at national level is not yet well coordinated for the support that is received to target the next step, to systematically target the next steps from different donors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. You were breaking up a little bit at the beginning, so I'm not sure whether I fully got your intervention, but I understand that what you were highlighting is that it was difficult, it's sometimes difficult for capacity building support to actually reach all levels in the country if the internal institutional setup is not yet in place. Is that a fair summary of what you were, the message that you were giving, or you want to explain a bit further?
Yes, I was just simply saying that the targeted support that is being received, yes, it's being received from the different donors. However, the framework and systems to systematically receive support for chronological activities from this capacity building need, or for example, collecting data to come up with a system, it's not yet at that level. So you find that the countries are not, my country where I've been operating in Uganda, we are not yet very well coordinated to receive the targeted support to effectively benefit. We still need some more capacity in terms of the coordinating entity to be able to guide the different support that is being received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, I think this is a very, very useful comment, and certainly something that we experience very frequently, that the links within countries are not always sufficiently robust to allow support to receive all the points where it is needed. And I think this also points to the function of building a transparency framework and the benefit for countries actually domestically, if they have a transparency framework, that they are in a much better position subsequently to engage a broad range of stakeholders. And I think from the beginning I understood that, Sheila, you were coming from the private sector association. So I think that is an example, but also linking down to the local level or across sectors is all a challenge and extremely important. Thank you. I think that's very valuable, and to some extent links up to the third question. So let me move to that question. The question is somewhat lengthy. What institutional arrangements and processes, both at the regional and domestic level, are working well to support the current MRV arrangements, and what are good examples of capacity building support for transparency? And then I think an important question is, how could these experiences be linked to the work under the enhanced transparency framework of the Paris Agreement? So institutional arrangements, what are good examples of capacity building support, and how do we learn from that for the Paris Agreement report? Carlos, I see your hand is up, please.
Thank you, Henning. And I said, let me get into this one early, because this is an area I thought Damiano would have covered when he made his intervention during the plenary session. In the Caribbean, we've established the Caribbean Cooperative Mrv Hub, which is really made up of the UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center in Grenada, the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, UNDP UNEP support program, and Damiano represents it there, funded by the GIZ. And this system is now strengthening the MRV systems nationally in, I think, 10 Caribbean countries, and is providing support so that inventories are getting better, and indeed that they can improve the reporting, and hopefully it will then transition into the MRV system under the enhanced transparency framework. And the idea is that if we build, as we are building the capacity now, that will then be able for us to very seamlessly then submit our first transparency reports. And hopefully this can be replicated across the world, and indeed become a permanent fixture, so that each country does not have to have the full MRV national systems in place, but we can use each other as each country builds specific technical capacity. It can then assist the neighboring countries and then provide that South-South collaboration. So I think this is something that we need to encourage across the various regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think that was above all a recommendation to build regional or sub-regional MRV hubs, so that you have capacity close by. I think very important, especially for smaller countries. But I think then also to build that standing capacity that has long-term sustainability of the capacity. So I think actually 2 points that I would pick up from your intervention. I see Brittany asking for the floor. Could you please introduce yourself and intervene?
Hello, good day, everyone. This is Brittany from Belize Climate Change Office and permanent representative to the UN. In reference to the third question, I just would like to take into account some of the previous speakers' points, which were very important, like our colleague from Uganda, who insisted that institutional arrangements are crucial to move MRV arrangements forward, and definitely having establish a coordinating body in each country, and particularly developing countries, is probably one of the first steps. And definitely, as Mr. Carlos mentioned, Belize is also part of the Caribbean Cooperative Mrv Hub, and it does provide a closer, a platform that's closer to home, with a group of regional experts that you can bounce ideas off of when it comes to MRV arrangements for different reporting and national reporting. However, although these platforms and groups for facilitating capacity building are available, it is in many cases that countries do not know exactly what they need or the level of support that they need until they start to implement the work. And so I think something that has been particularly useful in Belize's case of developing institutional arrangements for reporting of national communications, BURs, and greenhouse gas inventories has been learning by doing. And it has been in support, with the support of the regional hubs for capacity building through different projects. However, we experience that we don't really although we receive the capacity until you start to put your data together and start building your time series and start mapping out your needs, that you're not exactly clear on the level of preparation that it takes to get to that point. And I think it would be useful to, from the very beginning, and especially going into the new reporting process under the enhanced transparency framework, that work starts sooner than later, to have countries and their national experts start working hands-on to be able to build their capacity up to preparing their BTRs, for example, and that has been particularly useful in the development of stronger institutional frameworks in Belize from our experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brittany. Very useful points. I think you reiterated the essence of essential element of the institutional setup that really encompasses all that need to be linked to a transparency framework. The usefulness of a sub-regional hub, but only once countries are actually getting into it. I think that nicely links back to what we started off with, that learning by doing element, that you actually dive into trying to do it at home and get started. I'm certainly would underline the importance that countries really are in the driver's seat themselves and do not let themselves be guided too much by external experts, but guide any external experts that can support them. So being in that driver's seat, I think, is quite essential. And then we picked up the last point, that for the ETF to be implemented, we really need to start soon. I would say these should start now to get ready for this. I see one more hand up. That's Fabian. Do you want to come back? Very briefly, please.
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, I would like to add on the point of regional processes, and as I also mentioned in the panel discussion.
I can guess what he was trying to say, and that was he was referring to PAPA as doing excellent work in bringing sub-regional networks together, and I think he might have wanted to refer to that, which is certainly a point that I would underline, and links also up to Damiano's emphasis of the South-South collaboration, those sub-regional networks and exchanging experience with countries which are trying to do the same thing is extremely valuable. And I could tell similar stories from our work as we've had, as Damiano was illustrating. So we have to finish up with, I see one more intervention. That's Molly White from GHGMI and Marcato. Can you keep your intervention really very short, Molly, please?
Yeah, thank you, Henning. My name is Molly White from the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, and my one intervention, we recently completed research in developing an indicator for capacity, and along with co-collaborators at IGES and UNDP, and I'd say one institutional arrangement and process that I think is often overlooked, but it does unlock support received and can facilitate improved domestic MRV, is that the existence of some kind of legal or formal arrangement at the domestic policy level as it relates to climate change. Just knowing that with institutional arrangements in terms of coordination bodies and interaction of multiple agencies underneath that, oftentimes it's this this top indicator of policy existence that can unlock some of those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think also an important point that institutional arrangements to be long-term and viable need to have a good legal or regulatory basis. I see that Makoto Kato was asking for the floor.
Yeah. Thank you very much for Makoto from Japan. Yes, just mentioned, but I just wanted to also touch upon our recent experiences workment, and also like many countries or many ministries are actually struggling the authorities to request for data submission from line ministries or sectoral ministries. But I think that actually helps authorizing those focal point ministries. And also like a budget comes based on the legal arrangements. So that is actually something we would like to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that also underlines the same point. So it came at a good time. I think we unfortunately have to stop here. Really had a limited time for this, and I would like to thank all colleagues who joined us and for all the very good interventions. Also to the UNFCCC colleagues for hosting this session. I think we really only touched on issues, but quite a lot of issues, and I see a strong interest in digging a bit deeper into this. So I think there would be potential to take such a conversation further. I think there's a lot of good appetite out there to go into preparing for the enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. I really see a huge potential there to create a positive agenda for countries to move this forward. Getting started is obviously the biggest challenge, but I think the encouraging message from this session was that once you get started, and it will be easier. So then you will actually have wind in your sails, and you will be able to move forward. And that is another encouragement to start soon and not wait until November 2024 when you discover that you should report by December 2024. So with that, thank you to all again, and look forward to actually meeting many of you in person at some not too distant future. Thank you, and goodbye, or see you again in the plenary.